I got them for like $1 pretty much everywhere on the Friday or the Saturday or Sunday waivers. So
I have 25% Damian Williams in FFPC, so I'm really hoping that Khalil Herbert's not a thing. And
I was going to look mine up.
The thigh bruise is nothing big, so
yeah,
he was one of my faves in.
So that's like one I could really use in a lot of leagues. So I'm really hoping that's a thing.
Yep. And for our listeners, because I notice we're live now, we're almost ready to officially get going, but we decided, what the heck, we're going to get out here and just
a little behind the scenes action.
Yeah, a little behind the scenes. You can see what it's like before the show, where we're all trying to figure out what we're doing with our free agent money and good stuff like that.
I'm at 6% on FFPC, but that kind of feels like 20% with Damian Williams.
Yeah.
Well, I know that I know this could be a fruitful week because Dan has a good amount of exposure to Alex Collins. I have a great amount of exposure to Damian Williams, and I know Abib, when he comes on, is holding a lot of Samaje Perine. So I'm sure he could use a few weeks of no Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I could use a few weeks of Joe Mixon actually showing up. That's what I could use.
That's one guy I don't have.
That'd be good too.
I have very little Joe Mixon this year.
I had very little until the end. And it was just like, I should probably get some Mixon. And I kind of regret that. But that's all right.
Yeah, that's actually something we covered as well is, am I stupid for holding on to Samaje all this time? And that's actually something we kind of covered. So now it seems like it's not a stupid thing to hold on to him. It's funny that you cover those things and then the football gods just, give you a gift like that, to have Mixon get banged up. But see, the champ is here.
I was just gonna bust it. I was thinking
we
right.
We were talking about your Samaje Perine shares, Abib, and how much Samaje you're holding right now. I'm gonna guess 20% Samaje.
Oh man, I would have to look it up. It's up there. It's been I don't want to say fortunate year. I don't want we don't like to win them based off of injuries, but you kind of take these things into account. So a lot of these handcuffs, the right ones just seem to be hidden. And even if it's just like 1 or 2 weeks here or there, it's so helpful. Like the Madison week was just so helpful. So, but we'll see. He may not even be playing this week. So we'll see.
Abib, man, we're glad the champ is back in the district.
Like Cordero Patterson.
Sorry, Theo. I know there's too much goodness, and tonight's gonna be one of those shows. But we got to give the peeps the anthem, and then we'll get right into it, boys.
All right.
District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's and I'll always be traded. And I'll always be traded. And I'll always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We are back in the GOAT District. Another monster, or may I say, mammoth show this week, guys. For week 5, we're coming in strong. We're not sneaking in the guests. We're not sneaking them in the back door. No discreetness as we go into week 5, guys, because Your 4-0 teams are obvious. Your 0-4 teams are obvious. There's no more hiding, So we're coming in strong. We're bringing in probably, I don't know, Dan, maybe our biggest guest, the champ. The champ is back on the district. Abib, Agbatoba. Man, I practiced it, and I didn't think I'd mess it up. and we got who we found out is your brother-in-law, our boy Chris Henderson. I'd say like two of the trio of probably Fantasyland's favorite show out there in the YouTube machine, First and 15. Guys, welcome to the district.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure is all ours. I mean, it's a great show. If anybody out there hasn't caught the First and 15, I recommend it. It's fantastic stuff all the way through. And like I was telling Chris earlier, it's just like you kind of almost feel like you're eavesdropping on a conversation, and so it's got a really unique feel to it. And there's just a ton of great information going on, and there's definitely a little bit of no holds barred in there every now and then too. So love to hear it, and big fan for sure.
And those are all the segments that we didn't cut from the show. So
oh wait, you guys edit?
Oh man!
Oh yeah, we edit. We've had people storm away from the microphone before. So that's the editing conversation.
Oh man! All good times. All good times.
No, you guys have it's the chemistry, man. The like we were saying, it's organic, right? You guys have a relationship. I believe Abib yourself, and oh wow, total blank.
Theo.
Yes, Theo. You guys have known each other, from what I understand, like from way back. So it's like the banter is like real. You know what I mean? Like it's not just a show. It's not put on. You guys have a true organic banter there, and the passion behind it. I mean, it's perfect. And just to throw in again, I was telling Chris, I love the subtleness of it, like how different it is, the way you guys have branded it, and the way it's presented. I think is clever as well, and it's very appealing.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely obviously like a certain level of competitiveness, but there's also a certain level of respect, mutual respect amongst us. And so I think, ideally, it's a conversation and a way for us to kind of, have discussions that we all have, but just to kind of, put it on air. And then, as far as sort of kind of just the organic nature, the flow of the show, kind of how it's portrayed and how it comes, that's all Chris. That is literally all Chris. It's funny because, when we first started talking about doing it, I just, throw out the idea, okay, let's just, sit and talk about fantasy football. And Chris was like, no, if we're going to do it, we got to do it differently. And he would throw out an idea and I was like, that's not going to work. He's like, just trust me. I'm like, all right. So, we like to say, we let Chris cook.
Nice.
Yeah, he's been cooking, man. And no, I got to ask Chris, is this something that you have experience in, like the whole, because I know like when I had no idea about anything and it's just kind of you're on your own. Are you kind of just going through this adventure on your own, figuring it out, or you have a background in this?
No, man. Like I am a lawyer by trade, and YouTube just kind of walks me through this whole thing. And so I just stay up at night watching YouTube videos on how to edit and how to do lighting and stuff like that, and just kind of using each show as an opportunity to get better. I mean, I hate to sound like an athlete at this point, but I really do use every show to try to get better and to try to learn to do something different. But these guys, I mean, Abby and Dio, like with their dialogue back and forth, they make it really, really easy. So, I mean, I'm just kind of learning my way through it as well.
No, we love it, man. We love what you guys are doing. I got to ask, because, for those who don't know, you see the comments there. Famous Jay always in the house. Thanks for joining us. Guys, smash the like, smash the subscribe. We bring in the big guest. Abib, how are the teams doing this year? For those who don't know, as I was going to say, we got a double champ in the house. I mean, this man, $750,000, just, taking it from Fantasyland like a baller, and that's how it's done. But back to back too. You got to put that in there, back to back. How are the teams doing this year in 2021?
As far as just kind of like how the teams are doing, like wins, losses, I tell these guys, I don't think they believe me, but I don't really even look at the records, to be quite honest. I don't look at matchups. I don't look at scores. I mean, as you're kind of scrolling through the teams to like do waivers, you see the red and the green. So you have a general sense of, okay, looks about like 50 to 60% maybe won this week, maybe 50 to 60% lost this week. So most of kind of what I base things off of are, how many of my picks hit, particularly those mid to later round guys. Do I feel, how many teams do I feel strong about? And you just have a general sense, when I'm doing waivers and I'm looking at teams and I'm doing start sit decisions, some teams just look like monsters. And then some teams just look like, man, was I drunk during this draft? Like what exactly happened? And sometimes it's just, in a accumulation of just like, bad events. You had a Michael Thomas, pick, you had a couple injuries here or there. You've had to kind of struggle on the waiver wire. You've made some kind of bad decisions here, and you may find yourself at 1-3, 0-4, something like that. But with each team, like I don't care if it's 0-4 or what. I just gotta approach it like this could potentially be a winner, especially so early in the season, because I think things can just really change on a dime. I say it all the time. I've said it on the show previously that I try to approach the season in quarters. So we're just finishing up the first quarter. That's why we dropped the first pod. And, my hope and my goal is to try and anticipate what players, what teams, what coaches are going to do kind of moving forward, what we can kind of anticipate and try to hopefully not rely too much on like retrospective data and what we've seen. Some stuff will obviously carry over, but, like it is with every year, there's always going to be, changes that occur.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely, if you're looking for a place to get started on the First and 15 podcast, their last, I guess it's a double episode. So, but you guys went through the whole.
Which was a pleasant surprise, I might add.
Yeah.
I was like, is this the same one or is there two? I was like, oh, nice. There's two,
But they went through the whole NFL, every team, team by team, through all the divisions and, just kind of talked about, what's happened and what they feel like might happen. So it was really good stuff. Yeah.
And credit to you guys for being able to do this just as often as you guys are able to do it. I mean, and really put out just like amazing product. Like this is not easy, like whatsoever. And I'm saying it on my end. I can't imagine on Chris's end. But for you guys to kind of, again, like, it's one thing to kind of put out product. It's another thing to put out some, great and amazing product. So definitely credit to you guys as well.
JD is our master technician, man. Me and Theo, we just show up and talk.
No, man. I was about to say
that's it.
Yeah, they're down talk. I gotta say, like, yeah, okay. I try to do the techie stuff, but that's just I've been doing it for how many years now, and doesn't mean I'm not far ahead as I'd want to be. But I was gonna say, the people you do it with, I think is a big factor. Chris, you talked about your two co-hosts and how great it is to work with them. I feel blessed, man. I get to jump on with two of the smartest guys I know in fantasy land and talk with them. And Theo and Dan have brought in some awesome guests. We've just had like a really good, kind of organic thing happening here. And we hope that Fantasyland is liking it. And, if you're watching right now, smash that like, guys. That's, your way of supporting the show. But guys, we got to get into the goodness. The peeps are here to get the goodness. The lighting and the cameras and all that is great, but they want to know how to win week 5 and beyond. Because like you said, guys, we're coming out of Q1. You guys outlined it nicely in your show, and guys, go check that out because it's some good details, some great pointers, some stuff, it gives you that little edge over the rest of your teammates who maybe aren't on top of it. But as we go into the next 3 quarters, there's different ways you can go depending on how your different rosters are doing, how you're approaching waiver wires, buys, sells, the whole managing the roster. So that's what we're going to try to help tonight. We're going to do a quick reflection. Dan, I'm going to go to you first. Start this bad boy out looking at Q1.
All right. So, I think that, like the major regret that I had looking back is just that I never got into any Derrick Henry. And the reason why it's really a regret for me is for a couple, 3 years, I've been saying, you know, well, do we really know that Derrick Henry can't catch passes? All we know is that they don't ask him to catch passes, right? You know, and so it was one of those things where I was like, you know, he could be a good pass catcher. We just don't know really. And then all of a sudden, you know, they change coaches. You know, we got a new offensive coordinator, and you know, Derrick Henry's in this new offense, and I was just like, yeah, he never catches any passes. You know, he's just getting too many rush attempts, and you know, he just, it's hard for him to pay off his ADP when he's up this high. You know, if he was a second rounder, I'd take him. And I completely discounted my prior of, you know, maybe he actually can catch passes, which should have cued me into, you know, let's at least get some Henry and see what we can do with it. I mean, you know, I wouldn't have gone all the way in on him, but I sure shouldn't have been all the way out on him either.
Chris, you got to excuse Dan. He's you could tell this was a question he really prepared. He jumped right into the answer before, you know, discussing the question. No, I'm kidding, Dan. I'm just pulling your leg. But I was just so everyone knows what's kind of, we're just looking back and, you know, talking, is there a regret, you know, and Dan, I think that's a fantastic spot to start. Chris, where are you at? Any regrets, if any, in the Q1?
Oh, big regret with Mike Davis. I drafted him in the 5th round, and when I went back to look at the teams that I had Mike Davis on, I passed up on guys like Adam Thielen and Cooper Kupp, guys that are really killing it right now. And I don't know what I was thinking drafting Mike Davis in the 5th, but I have a lot of 5th round Mike Davis, and when I think about what I passed up on during that time, I mean, I don't know how I didn't consider Cordero Patterson being in that backfield and taking some snaps, taking some work away. I mean, and he's looking so good lately. I think that's probably going to continue throughout the season as well. So I have really big regrets with Mike Davis.
Abib, where are your regrets lying after the first 4 weeks?
Maybe a bit in the process in terms of kind of how I approached this year drafting. I think this year, you know, I tried to diversify a tad bit more. And in certain situations that panned out very well. But I think in other situations, I felt like my teams could have been in better off situations. And, you know, it's kind of a constant battle and struggle, you know, with this idea of, you know, the large range of possibilities for a player. And so you definitely want to, think of the potential wide range of outcomes. But, you know, sometimes you just got to have, you know, courage of your conviction and just really kind of go with your, you know, what you believe to some degree. So I diversified, you know, a few areas a little bit here or there. Still there, you know, quite a few guys that I was obviously, you know, very, very heavy on. I think that's a lot easier in the mid to later rounds. But I feel like in those earlier rounds, I feel like if I would have just kind of been a little bit more aggressive about, you know, getting my guys early on, maybe I'd be in a little bit better spot. But again, it's early, so we'll see.
Theo, where's your head at with regards to maybe something you missed on or you do different?
Oh, I think Theo might be froze.
I think, yeah. Oh, he's back.
Sort of.
You might have Yeah, we're losing you, buddy. You might have to just drop and come back. We got a global show, guys. It's international. We got Wi-Fi across the globe. Dan Wheeler's still trying to sell Latavius. I don't know which of the GOAT leagues he's got him in, but he's got Gallman and Latavius on the block right now.
All right. We got Theo back. He's moving.
Right, Theo's back.
So it's a good sign.
Bad timing with the internet issue. Yeah, so my regret is not drafting Kyler Murray enough. I was very bullish on him. I drafted him, but I should have gone heavier on him. This is the kind of improvement that I kind of anticipated. He has improved weapons. He had a full offseason this year, and I believe in his talent. So I wish I would have gone a little heavier on Kyler. my Kyler teams are doing very well, as anybody who drafted Kyler should be doing with their teams. And then I do have a little bit of regret on Allen Robinson. I drafted him, fairly often, and I felt really fortunate when he would land to me in the end of the third. And I wish I could have diversified that a little bit more. I didn't see Darnell Mooney cutting into it. To me, honestly, when I watch Chicago, I see Darnell Mooney as a guy who's kind of breaking out, and I think that they're a lot closer than maybe we analyzed in the preseason. That didn't really cross my process, and I think that's one thing I should have looked at is a guy like Mooney potentially being a lot closer to the wide receiver 1 than a far off wide receiver 2 in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get a lot of Mooney in redraft. I've got a few in Dynasty, where I just kind of picked him up and held on to him. But I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like I don't have a lot of regret about not getting a lot of Mooney, just because I felt like, his profile was just one that it's rare that you get the hit on. And where he was getting pushed up in drafts, it was just I had a tough time pulling the trigger on him when there were players with profiles that I liked a lot better there. I mean, obviously now it's looking like it was a mistake to not have very much of him, but at least I've got some in Dynasty. But I can't really fault you on that, Theo. I think it was kind of a natural thing to, take a look at Allen Robinson and say, well, yeah, of course he's going to be the alpha. No,
I think it's, you can't really criticize the process. The guy gets 150 targets every single year. But again, it's kind of like a hindsight 2020 type thing. And my thought was Justin Fields would have taken over sooner, and we would have had kind of the rookie having tunnel vision for his wide receiver 1. And the offense just kind of hasn't gone as I thought, and maybe we could see a Robinson rebound. Fields looks a little bit more improved, and also we have now David Montgomery out of the offense. Maybe they finally start throwing to Allen Robinson a little bit. So I'm not sure what's going to go on in that situation. It's kind of in flux.
Yeah, he's running a lot out of the slot as well. So and initially first thought was, okay, this is good for Allen Robinson. From a target standpoint, because I think when we think of Allen Robinson, we don't think of him in the same light that we think of, guys we were drafting the Terry McLaurins, the CeeDee Lambs, guys who, may have, decent floors, but just, could go boom. He's just a guy that you thought, okay, maybe I can get, 7, 8 catches a game, 80 to 90 yards, and if he gets me a touchdown, I'm great. But I'm looking for that 15 to 20 point, kind of output. And that just 15-point floor week in and week out. And we're just, early on, we haven't seen that. But I'm with you. I think, Chicago's a tough team. The defense seems to, be a little bit schizo at times. We're not really quite sure. I mean, I think we know what they want to do, but they have a very difficult time of doing it. And just Matt Nagy, I'm just, thank God he's not long, or hopefully no longer calling plays. I think that will help the offense out as a whole. And so, if Mooney can continue to kind of take the top off of defenses and, and ease things up for Allen Robinson underneath, and like you said, with Montgomery being out, it may end up kind of working out for you in the long run.
Yep, for sure.
Guys, I have no regrets. I'm just killing it. No, I'm just kidding.
No regret.
Hey, man, Deebo Samuel, most owned in Dynasty. You hit sometimes, but our boy Wheeler talking about LA and the Rams, or Famous J talking about the Rams offense. And it's not that I have a lot of Bobby Woods or it's just Cooper Kupp for some reason when he was there. I wish I'd grabbed a lot more. I have a couple shares in Dynasty. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling that again, but just it's funny. I went into the season thinking, wow, this offense is going to be amazing. They have Stafford, and I feel like I didn't bite enough on that. And maybe that worked out in the sense that I also don't have a lot of Bobby Woods, but we'll see. Higbee's a guy that I did lean heavily on in that offense, so hopefully that pays off. But Eckler's a guy I wish I had. I kept trying to buy him in Dynasty, man. I just could not people who own Ecklers for whatever reason weren't letting go. And maybe I'm thinking I wish I was more aggressive. But that's another guy I wish right now I had a bit more shares of.
Yeah, to the GOAT community, you guys are not alone with the Bobby trees. I definitely, bit into that apple, and it was very sour and rotten. I did have a fair amount of Cup, but nowhere near as much as Woods, and I was definitely drafting Woods ahead of Cup. But I agree that it was like very, very close, and it's tough. You can kind of go back and say, okay, well, we should have seen this, but when I always kind of reevaluate my process, I ask myself, how likely am I to make this mistake again in the future, and in this situation, probably pretty likely. So. But again, there's time. We've already hearing, a little bit of Sean McVay coming out saying we need to give him the ball a little bit more. It only takes our offense to be, stagnant once, or for them to lose a game, or, have a poor output for coaches to kind of rethink. And that's why I kind of go back to, this quarters, because these defensive teams get tape. You're not gonna, no matter how good Cooper Kupp is, he's not gonna ball out every week in and out.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, teams are gonna say, okay, enough is enough. Okay, they're doing very well. They're scoring a lot of points, and this is the guy that's doing it. Let's take this away and force them to beat us somewhere else. And the Cardinals were able to do that. So you got to assume that other teams moving forward are going to try to mirror that until they figure out something else. And we'll see if they are. And hopefully that something else is getting Robert Woods and maybe guys like Higbee a little bit more involved as well.
So is it as simple as buying Bobby Woods and selling Cooper Kupp? If you can get that value, or no, Abib?
No. I think Kupp is the guy that you want to own, but I think Woods is still a great wide receiver 3, great flex play moving forward. You just gotta you gotta pick your spots ideally. We'll kind of get into it later, but I think this year is very, very difficult in terms of trying to figure out when to play certain wide receivers in which this year has for me been a lot harder for various reasons, but I think Cooper Kupp, you keep him and you hold on to him. They have great chemistry there. You can try and take a guy out to some degree, but when you have guys like Deshaun Jackson, Robert Woods, Higbee, and someone with Matthew Stafford's arm, you can only do so much,
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that the like we saw Higbee have a nice game 2 games ago. I think that Bobby Trees game is coming. The routes run are right there. And in the past, oftentimes like the McVay offense would be exploiting a mismatch. So as these games start coming along, you're going to find a game where Bobby Woods ends up with 9 catches and everybody kind of breathes a sigh of relief. I refuse to believe that he's just going to disappear.
Yeah.
A lot of times NFL guys kind of fade out quicker than you think, and it just kind of happens all of a sudden. But there was no signs with that with Bobby Trees, and they haven't cut down on his routes run. So, if he was really fading, you would see a big drop in that. But it's still right there. So I'm with you.
I'm gonna start the next one off, Dan, talking about guys we whiffed on. And this is not really necessarily me saying I whiffed on this guy, but I know this is a guy that I'm heavily invested in, and a lot of people invested heavily. Antonio Gibson, is this basically what we should expect this season? Are we going to get kind of what we were hoping out of this guy, possibly elevating to the next level? Chris, I'll go to you first, buddy.
That's a good question, because I think we kind of talked about that as well, on whether J.D. McKissic, is he going to really eat into the third down work that we thought that Gibson was going to get? I think he looks really good, and I think he is going to kind of eat into Gibson's third down catches. I still like Gibson. I'm still holding on to him. I'm still starting him every week. I just can't let go at this point. Not this early, but if McKissic is really eating into, the work that Gibson is getting, at some point, I'm going to have to make that hard decision. But no, I still think Gibson is a running back to hold on to start. I still see him as a start every week. I just can't put him on a bench at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Chris. I'm still bullish on Gibson. I think a big part of the problem is that basically Washington keeps fooling around and they don't really get into, the goal line area or the goal to go until they're into their 2-minute offense. And then that's McKissick, we know that. And so you just got to, we need to see Washington getting down into scoring territory more often during the main parts of the game rather than just when they've got to really turn on the jets as far as pace. So I agree that he's not everything I hoped he would be, but I still think he can be enough to to win with. So that's where I'm at on him.
Keep the faith.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right,
faith,
guys. Absolutely keep the faith on Gibson. Absolutely keep the faith. And I think that there's a couple of games coming up where you could see them leaning into it a little more. And I think the Logan Thomas injury will be interesting for them. That was a big piece for them, and I don't see Ricky Seals-Jones as like a like-for-like guy who's going to get the same kind of usage. So I think there'll be some, potentially more touches for Gibson and potentially also more looks for McKissick. And hopefully, we see a lot of, McLaurin continuing doing what he did last game. So that offense will be interesting to see because Thomas was a big piece of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was definitely, it was one of those situations for him. We kind of talked about it and we had to, I kind of went on and on about Gibson and, the idea that, we want him to kind of, be this, 3-down back. But, J.D. McKissick is just very, very good in that role. And I think, what kind of really kind of, had him just take off as far as his ADP wise over the summers was when the beat reporter came out and said that he was getting work in their turbo package. And then I later had heard him kind of go into that a little bit more. And it was more so that, okay, he was getting involved, but it was still, for the most part, J.D. McKissick. And so we all kind of took that, okay, he's, if he's getting the 2-minute work, Antonio Gibson is like he's an easy first-round pick, if not top half of the first-round pick. But him not getting that 2-minute work, that hurry-up work, the third-down work hurts. But we all, for the most part, we were all getting him in the second round. That is not going to hurt you. Like, it's not going to hurt you. Like, not so, whatsoever. And he still has the ability to put up some, some monster weeks. So I don't see that as a, as a miss of any kind, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. Theo, what do you think? Go ahead. What's your big miss?
Well, I touched a little bit on Allen Robinson. I'm not ready to call him a miss, but I do think that the one lesson I've kind of learned this year was, and I wouldn't say that I'm extremely exposed to him, but Brandon Ayuk versus Deebo Samuel should have been more of a discussion in the preseason. I think that as the summer kind of moved along, the Ayuk ascension, I definitely bought into it. I have some Samuel, but I certainly have more Ayuk. And I think that my lesson is, when a guy pops and it's the same coaching staff and then maybe has a setback for a year, the following season is kind of up for grabs. So the way that we looked at Ayuk as a potential, potentially more of an alpha was never something that Kyle Shanahan necessarily looked at. They loved Deebo Samuel when he was a rookie. Last year he had some issues with injuries, and now this year he's back, and they've even expanded his role in the offense. They're throwing to him downfield, and they're still getting the forced look. So to me, that's got to be some of the process, and whether that's the way we look at, wide receiver pecking order in offenses, I think that's something where it's like a lesson learned with the Ayuk versus Samuel, because a lot of teams could basically flip their record on its head in high stakes formats just simply by taking Samuel and where he was drafted versus Ayuk where he was drafted.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
I won't brag with my ownership on Deebo. Just saying.
You should.
But I mean, guys, how cheap for me with Deebo? Like I love Deebo. I mean, I've got the stupid profile pics. I got one rocking right now on Twitter. I've had him for a couple of years. But for me, the thing with Deebo that stood out was Super Bowl how much did they lean? I know it was a couple years ago, but how much did they lean on Debo, especially in those crucial moments? To me, that was huge. You're not just going to let that go just because you got a rookie coming in that's got a bit of, not a bit of talent, but you know what I'm saying? That's not just going to disappear. And then you talk about narrow target trees. I mean, this could be without the Mahomes. You've got kind of like the superstar tight end. You got your wide receiver one now, which is we're starting to see is probably Debo. So hopefully Seymour carves himself out as something nice, as a weapon in that backfield, and we can get something to lean on there, not just kind of guessing all the time. But who else, Guy? Who else did you guys whiff on?
Yeah, Devo for me was a big one. So I'll echo all the comments that you guys just made, and definitely, 100% agree in terms of reevaluating that process. And I would say, I still have, quite a few shares, but definitely not as many shares as I probably should have of Mike Williams.
Yes.
He just had a recent dud, but for the most part, obviously, he's been a huge hit. And some of this is tough because like where Debo was going, where Mike Williams was going, there were also other players in that range that were going that, were doing pretty well. I ended up getting like a lot of Brandon Cooks. And so, ideally you try to kind of, get, different guys here or there. But for the most part, it's probably hard to get all three of those guys and then say, and then just sort of kind of win that battle. But, definitely Mike Williams. It was just, there was so much kind of coming out of LA with regard to obviously him being the X position, but then them not wanting to re-sign him. And then we just have all the past data that we have. Maybe he's not a great separator, or maybe he just kind of runs 9 routes. And granted, that's like an old regime with the new one coming in, but probably should have put more stock into the idea of him running the X. And the biggest kicker of that, and really the reason why I think I missed was, I was a Herbert fan and I thought Herbert was good, but I didn't know he was this good. And I mean, literally from, the first game of the NFL season, watching him play, I just immediately thought to myself, this guy is legit. Like, this guy is going to, carry this offense. And this is his offense. This is not a running team whatsoever. This is Herbert's team, and it's going to go as far as Herbert will let them go. So probably should have been higher on Herbert himself, but definitely, obviously, Mike Williams as well.
Well, the thing about Herbert in that rookie season is that most people think that there has to be a regression. With as hot as he started, there has to be some regression. And if there is a regression, then how can you be high on Mike Williams, but there's no regression? I mean, there's just none. I mean, he looks good.
And the other thing too was I had a hard time really, coming to terms with the idea that, okay, he's going to be able to feed and support Keenan Allen ADP in the second round, this Mike Williams ADP in the 7th and 8th round, Austin Eckler in the 1st round, and then we're also drafting Jared Cook as well. And I guess what we're seeing is Keenan Allen is yet to sort of kind of really take off, and so maybe that pendulum swings a tad bit and things kind of equalize. But we'll see.
Don't forget Parnham touchdown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Herbert looks unbelievable, and I think it's. My biggest takeaway is when you watch him, it's almost like Patrick Mahomes and Herbert might end up being the two most poised and talented quarterbacks. We get to see them go head to head at least twice every year. So it's just awesome. But it's like there's no ceiling for Herbert, what he can do in his career. And as a fantasy quarterback, I mean, the guy's just terrific, and he certainly elevates an offense, like you said. It's I wish I had even more Eckler. Just the way that offense is going.
Yeah.
Well, like Abib said, right? They're not a running team, and I mean, what better other than Christian McCaffrey? Like, what better running back do you want leading the backfield in that type of offense? So, I mean, everything just fits perfectly, and you saw it against KC, and it's going to be fun to watch this offense and the kid, moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when a quarterback is as precocious coming out as Herbert was, that's a great place to invest long term. I mean, that's the thing about quarterbacks. I mean, they just so often, we say, oh well, you got to give them time, and you're right. You can't just bury them if they don't do well in their first 5 games or something like that. But the ones who do well in those first 5 games, those are the ones you want to start grabbing immediately. And, because almost always that's for real. When somebody starts off their career that hot, they typically tend to keep going that hot for a good number of years.
Yeah.
That's why it's okay once in a while, late second, early mid-third rookie pick. You take that number 2 or 3 quarterback in the draft if you don't like what's sitting there at the other positions. And it doesn't. I'm saying that because I got Herbert in a couple 1 quarterback leagues as my quarterback now, just because in the 3rd round he was kind of sitting there early. So it's not always bad, in those 1 QBs to spend it on the right guy. Guys, we've kind of looked back, the first quarter, but moving forward now, obviously Skywalker, he's got the special powers. We're moving into, the meat of it, right? We've got a taste of it. I always think about the Patriots, right? The Patriots to me taught me wait 4 weeks in the NFL to get an idea, because we've seen the Patriots go ugly for 4 weeks and then come back and win a Super Bowl more than once.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at, at that point. But as we look forward, and Chris, I'll start it off with you. The next 3-4 weeks, pretty crucial to separate, if you're, one of the top contenders, or maybe to get back into it if you're more in the mid or bottom. Who's someone you think could smash, in this next quarter, as you look at the landscape right now?
When I look at the landscape right now, who can smash? I mean, I still like Darren Waller. I know people don't believe in a Gruden offense. People don't look at Derek Carr as one of those quarterbacks. But I think Darren Waller can smash right now. I don't trust Ruggs. I think Renfro is okay at best. He doesn't truly have a number 1 receiver that can take those targets away from him. Josh Jacobs is banged up. I mean, I'll let Abby dump on Kenyon Drake, but I mean, there's nobody there to truly take away targets from Darren Waller when they choose to go to him. I mean, week 1, he had 19 targets for a tight end. Like, that is nuts. I think that going forward, for them to be successful, he's going to have to get double-digit targets in a game. And so I can see him just smashing the second quarter for the rest of the season, because they're going to have to, game plan and actually script plays for Darren Waller if they want to be successful. And here's another thing too. Being in that division, they can't afford to give up, games that they should win. They know that the Chiefs are nipping at their heels. They know that they are in a really tough division right now. So they're going to have to keep their foot on the gas. I see Darren Waller, pushing through and really smashing going forward.
No, I like that one a lot.
Yep,
and I think a little bit of self-scouting, where you take a step back and you look at what our strengths are, and maybe they've tried to be very balanced, but I think when it gets to the nitty-gritty of the schedule, they're going to feed their alpha, and Darren Waller's got to be that guy. It seems like Ruggs, they're trying to make a thing, which I think is smart, and I think that opens up Waller as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I'll throw in, as far as the guy I'm looking at, I think Chase Edmonds, he's just waiting to have that smash game. And he's had a really solid floor too, so far. He's been getting a good number of targets. He's in, basically the number 1 offense in the NFL right now. And, he's definitely the 1A in that committee, yet, kind Connor's been the one who's been getting all the touchdowns, and Chase Edmonds has yet to score a touchdown. I mean, when the touchdowns start coming for this guy, and they're going to, even if they don't use him down close, I mean, he's got the ability to score from a distance. I think Edmonds is going to be an excellent play over the next several weeks. And he's somebody that there's just no way you can get me to take him out of my lineup, because I feel like there's a 25, 30-point game coming anytime.
That offense, right? It's just one of those offenses you want a piece of.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, and he's just below 20% target share right now. He's like right there with Hopkins and Green. So I love that call, Dan.
Let me ask you guys quick before we keep this conversation going on the individual players. Are there offenses, because we're talking about Arizona, we're talking about Oakland. These are probably offenses that are, especially Vegas. Wow, I'm stuck in whatever, circa 2019. But we're talking about offenses that, especially the Raiders, over kind of performing right now as versus expectations. So are there offenses, and maybe are these two examples of them, where you're seeing maybe we're not going to expect that to continue? We talked about Cooper Kupp in LA, probably not continuing to dominate the receiver position. Looking at offenses, are there offenses that you guys are looking at thinking like right now they're doing great, but probably not going to continue this moving forward, and then you're adjusting based on that, whether it's moving some of those guys or tweaking the other way?
Oh, I don't know.
And it could go the other way too, like in New England. Maybe you weren't investing in New England, and now you're like, Mac Jones looks all right. They got a couple pieces there that are with Jacoby that are producing. Go the other way. Just an offense that maybe you don't think is going to continue in the same trajectory, and you can take advantage of.
I mean, I think it's for me, it would be more looking for some offenses that I think could improve. I think the top offenses that are shining, for the most part, are still going to stay. So
you're going to like the Jets.
Yeah, exactly. No, not quite that, not quite that low. Not quite that low. But I think
bringing back the Carter love.
Yeah, no, I'm holding out hope. Go ahead.
No, Abib, you go ahead.
Yeah, I'm holding out hope for the Seahawks offense.
Yes, please.
So this is an offense that has some explosive pieces. Obviously, it's a new system and a head coach that provides a little bit of some issues in terms of really letting them open that offense up, as opposed to just sort of kind of running it up the gut 30, 40 times a game. So I'm hopeful that, as we start to move forward, the playbook will start to open up, especially because they're not winning games the way they should be winning games. They're not, that offense isn't performing the way that offense should be performing. And at times it looks very, very stagnant. They get themselves in a rut. And to kind of piggyback off the last question, or to go back to the last question, I think I see DK Metcalf as someone who over the next 3 to 4 weeks could really explode. He to me this year really looks like the lead alpha in that offense, and I like the way that they're using him. His route tree to me seems to have expanded from last year. So I'm hopeful that Shane Waldron will kind of really start to open things up and allow them to. And I think kind of looking at their upcoming schedule, I think they're going to have to open things up. I don't think they're going to be able to sit on the ball or try to start their offense off with the run moving forward. So we'll see, but that's definitely an offense I'm looking forward to. Hopefully, getting better.
Yeah, and they need to move faster, just in general. I mean, their pace is just it's too slow. They're not getting enough plays. Yeah. And that's a big part of what we need too. Is if they move faster, they're just going to have more passing plays by default, which is where I'd hope to see the volume.
I think back-to-back champs just have high expectations. Like just they're top 10 guys, points per game. Seattle right now, top 10 in the NFL. Just saying. Go ahead, Theo.
Yeah.
No, Chris and I were actually talking about this in the pregame about this, and Dan as well. The Seattle LA game this Thursday. I mean, you're going to have to see it. It's going to be it seems like it's going to be an over environment, a pedal to the metal type game, and it's a very important game for both teams. And like I do think Seattle could be ascending as well. I think that's a good call. I'm interested to see which way the Packers are going. I think they had the nightmarish first game, and it seems like they're kind of getting that thing together. Rodgers looks fine. They've used Dillon in the correct way last game as sort of a closer, and I think that gives them an added element. And we're still waiting for that absolute smash game from Devontae, and we know that several of those are coming. And I think Cobb was a nice addition, kind of for real football, adding another receiver that Rodgers is comfortable with. So that's an offense I'm looking at over the next couple of weeks as well.
Don't be surprised if this Baltimore team takes a step forward as well. If Marquise Brown didn't drop 3 touchdown passes, I think he would have had a monster night. But they're going to get Bateman back. Don't be surprised if this Baltimore team takes a step forward as well.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
I'd be all about that. That would suit me just fine. And can I say how nice it is to see Kansas City not spotting the other team 3 touchdowns this past week before finally getting their offense in gear. I mean, you've got to hope that Andy Reid says, "Oh, hey, it is kind of fun to play with a lead or at least be even instead of being behind all the time." So definitely opens up their offense a lot more. Not that Philly's the greatest defense in the world, but I think if Kansas City stops spotting teams, that early lead, it's going to make their offense just flow a lot better. So I'm hopeful that will happen too.
And I have to mention the Giants, the New York Giants. That was like kind of my sleeper explosive team, the team that kind of really break out. And we're seeing kind of bits and pieces. They've definitely been plagued by the injury bug, but now that you're getting Kadarius Toney some reps, John Ross is back. Kenny Golladay is hopefully getting helpful. Obviously, we're aware of Saquon. We have Daniel Jones who can run. We get Shepard back. We got Ingram. Even Darius Slayton. I mean, this offense, and they've lost some defensive guys. This is not the defense that at least was kind of keeping them in games or kind of keeping things close. So don't be surprised if you see this kind of Giants team take off. I told these guys in the group chat, pick up the Dan Jones right now. Pick up now.
Chris,
I'm not picking up Daniel Jones. I'm not picking up Daniel Jones. No. He told us, listen, we see what Daniel Jones is.
400 yards passing. 400 last week, Chris. 400.
But against who? Against who?
But he looks good. He actually looks good. And that was against the Saints. He actually looks good. So
I gotta give him props. He's looked better than I think I've seen him look since maybe he was a rookie. And I do have a smattering of shares that I've kind of picked up in places where I had Justin Fields as a backup or something like that, and had the need to go out there and get something else to go with him. So hopefully.
Quick question, Abby. Since you believe in Daniel Jones so much, did you start Galladay this week? Did you have some shares of Galladay?
I have a lot of leagues. He got started.
Did you have some shares of Galladay? Listen,
somewhere you got.
Did you have some shares of Galladay playing?
I have shares. I have shares of Galladay. Yeah.
Did you start him this week?
Yes, but I also benched him in some leagues, so it's a hard question to answer.
Wait a second. Which one of you guys is the lawyer now?
They're both. I think they're both lawyers.
Yeah.
Oh man. That's a good one though. That's a good question because I only have Galladay in one place, and I actually put him on the bench. Just due to the fact that, though, I did have some really, really good starting options other than him. So,
you had a Lattimore matchup. No one was looking forward to that.
Right,
but
exactly.
It's 400 yards is 400 yards passing. So,
yep.
We're gonna add a couple giant receivers to our next segment. I'm just gonna add them in here. Pencil them in, as the kids used to say back in the day. Dan, remember that pen and paper stuff?
I do remember that pen and paper stuff. I mean, I've heard rumors that there are actually people who still use that method for.
we were talking about our I don't know, some kind of schedule or something earlier, and then Dan busted out a picture of like an I don't know what it was, like a napkin or something, where he wrote down a schedule with a pen. I'm like, people still write down with a pen and paper? That's impressive.
I'm old school. What can I say, man?
I love it, man. All right, guys, I think this was Dan, I'm totally stealing the questions. You know how it is, man. I love asking questions, and yeah. Especially you four brainiacs. I rather listen to you guys answer them than you guys ask them. And so let's look at this one, because Dan, you actually came up with this one. I love the question. I'll go to Abib first. Back-to-back champ. You got to let him go first. Just saying. But is there someone that makes you nervous, like when you're putting him in your lineup, that on draft day you like never thought that would happen? Like you know?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Definitely, Robert Woods. We kind of talked about.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. He falls into that category. Brandon Ayuk, although he's not really seeing my starting lineup much these days, so that's a hard one as well. And then from a quarterback standpoint, just again, I know that the offense is putting up points. I know that he's a great player, but just week in and week out, I always wonder if this is a week where he's going to kind of let me down just because of his past. And again, I don't think the offense is running at what it should be, and that's Russell Wilson. I mean, he gets to start every week, but I don't necessarily feel the most comfortable in starting him. And I'm like, Theo, I'm like you. I was, huge on Kyler Murray and that Arizona offense, and it's just so tough to get him. I usually like waiting on quarterbacks, and kind of waited. And Jalen Hurts was that guy this year. He's done pretty well, but I did end up with a lot of Lamar, and as much upside as Lamar has, still. Like I said, I think the offense is going to get better. I think it's going to get better. They had a lot of, COVID issues and injury issues in the offseason, players not playing. I think we're seeing that in Tennessee as well. So I think they will get better. But, last week, him against that Denver defense, I was a bit worried. But I like what I saw. I think he's turning into a better passer. So I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with some of these guys, and I'm getting a little bit more comfortable also sitting some of these guys. So both good things.
Yeah, it's funny. It's Lamar is just fantastic. But if you could just go up one round and take Kyler Murray or Josh Allen, it's the two offenses that are completely humming. I mean, I think the win rates for Lamar teams should be good, but the win rates for those two other guys are just through the roof. So it's always funny where to gauge the quarterback position. So I think Lamar was great process, but gosh, when you watch Kyler Murray play, it's unbelievable. It's like he's moving at a different speed right now, and that offense seems like they're getting better and better. And Buffalo, I'll throw out Josh Allen. We just kind of sit back and look at him as a guy that was maybe going a little too close to Pat Mahomes. I think that was kind of a narrative I was buying into. And then when we get to the end of the summer. And everybody starts waiting on QB. I actually did get some Josh Allen teams, which I'm, obviously super stoked about. So, it's Kyler Murray and Josh Allen. I mean, if I could just go back and find a way to have those guys on every single team, I think I'd be sitting pretty.
Tough to do in those super flex leagues.
Yeah, 100% on that.
I mean, for me, it's I'm having a little bit of trouble with right now CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. I think I'm going to change Dalton Schultz's name officially to Silence of the Lamb.
That's a good one, Dad. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Because he's killing him. I mean, between that and
I know it's late. I know it's late, Dan, but I was fumbling here. I had to throw it out. We haven't used it all show, man. You deserved it.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, but I mean, between the heavy running scripts that they've had the past 3 weeks, and then Schultz getting he's been getting the touchdowns basically. And, there just hasn't been a lot left for Cooper and Lamb. And, I don't really expect that to continue. I mean, they're players that you can't not start. I mean, if you have them, you just have to keep throwing them in there because it's going to happen. I mean, even if you think it's going to be a run-heavy game script, you never know when a couple fluky bounces will happen, and all of a sudden Dallas is behind, they got to pass. And if Dak is passing to win, I think the Dalton Schultz, it's a nice story, and maybe it keeps going all season long. Maybe he's this year's Bobby Tonyan or something, but. I think the cream is going to rise in that passing game. And so, Cooper and Lamb are going to be, people that you're happy to have in your starting lineup, but it's just really tough to stick them in there right now.
Yeah. So when we started this season, we said that Garoppolo couldn't get injured because Trey Lance was there to take that starting job. We said the same thing about Andy Dalton. He can't get injured because if he does, then his job is gone. Are we sure? And I know Abby is going to look at me when I say this. Are we sure that if Zeke gets injured for a few weeks, and yes, I'm going there. I'm gonna beat this drum. If Zeke gets injured for a few weeks and Pollard comes in and that offense gets faster because now they're spreading the ball to CeeDee Lamb, to Cooper, and they can still run the ball with Pollard between the tackles. That offense gets faster to me if they put in Pollard. And if Zeke is not there, I don't think that they can bench Zeke because he's a $90 million running back. But if Zeke is injured, are we sure that Zeke is going to get the same workload that he got before any injury, even if he comes back 100%? If they get a chance to see what they have, in Pollard.
The answer is yes.
It is.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Listen, I'm telling you, if the offense
have you seen Pollard pass block?
I was just gonna say, is it because of the blocking or because of the talent? That's exactly what I was waiting at.
You can't go fast when you're on your back.
but we're talking about an offensive line that was a little banged up last year. They still have a really good offensive line. Listen. Great, Zeke can block. You don't pay a guy $90 million for pass protection. You want an offense that can get fast. We know that that's what Jerry Jones wants. He wants a lot of points, wants the greatest show on turf, all right? Like, that's what he wants. To me, Pollard gives them the best opportunity to do that versus having Zeke in there that's pass protection. So
is Mike McCarthy strong-willed enough to not put Zeke back in the lineup? I don't see that happening. I think Mike McCarthy would come back to him, and I think you might get 3-4 awesome weeks out of Pollard, and then all of a sudden Zeke would come back, and it would be Pollard getting his touches cut in half. I think that there's a lot of coaches in the league that would think exactly like you would, and you would already start seeing the Pollard ascension. I mean, the guy looks unbelievable. Every time he touches the ball, he gets at least 5 yards, and he's so explosive. And I think that if it was Pete Carroll, and I think you'd see Zeke playing behind him. I think if it was Andy Reid, I think you'd see that. But Mike McCarthy just seems like he's just not that guy to me. I could be completely reading it wrong, but I think Zeke is the man for as long as he's in Dallas. And I think maybe after this season, something happens, but I don't know. It would be hard to see Zeke come back to not a lot of volume.
Here's the hidden benefit of Zeke too. I mean, other than just the pass blocking, but he keeps an offense on schedule. And that's something that's very important to a lot of NFL coaches is just the fact that, you put him in there and, you feel like you're getting 3 yards for sure. You might get 5, you might get 10, but you're for sure getting 3. And if you're getting 3 yards, you're either on schedule or close to on schedule. You don't have those dropped for a loss or no gain or anything like that very often. And that's something I think a lot of coaches really appreciate about him. So that's the other reason why I think Zeke is going to continue to just, be the main cog in that offense. And Pollard is I think Pollard's great providing juice on the edges. And when I say on the edges, I don't mean on the edges of the offense. I mean on the edges of, he comes in and he's the changeup. and it's a valuable changeup.
On our next episode, when I wear a Free Pollard T-shirt, now you guys are going to know Free Pollard.
I mean,
I like it. I mean, I love Pollard too. I mean, he's a great player.
Zeke runs for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he texted me about how great Pollard looks. And I'm like, I can't win here. I know I can't win here.
I hope Chris is right on this one. I mean, I have a couple of car payments worth of Tony Pollard this season, and I'm hoping that I get to unleash it.
Theo's got a few car payments like for years with all those rosters. He's got FFPC.
100%. But yeah, I love Pollard, and I think he's just awesome. But yeah, it's I mean, and you know, I'm happy to throw him in the flex in these plus matchups, you know, as needed. I think he's you know, exciting in that sense as well. So I don't want to miss on the Pollard blow up weeks, because they'll keep coming. There'll be a few more of those.
And Wheeler touches on something interesting, and I know on the 1st and 15, you guys talk about this, like the week 7, right? And wanting these running backs to last longer and to stay healthy throughout the season. So we're seeing less and less like the one guy show, you know, when it comes to running back. So it's a nice compliment. You know, you hope they can both produce for Fantasyland, but you kind of, you know, if you own one of them more, you kind of hope that guy takes over that offense. But no, I think it's a great topic to touch on, especially in that backfield and that offense. Now, we got 2 lawyers on the show. We've got, you know, back-to-back champs. You guys are very methodical in your approach. I'll go back to you, Abib. Themes or trends that you're seeing coming out of Q1 that we should be kind of paying attention to.
Yeah, there's a few. One, we're seeing certain teams really expand, you know, their tree of players, or expand the amount of players that they get involved in the offense. And it's making it very difficult week to week. And what makes it even tougher now that we're seeing defensive coordinators who we felt like, you know, favored one scheme, now really sort of kind of tailor their game plans to the players and teams that they're playing. So, you know, the Chargers are a great example of that. You know, for the last few weeks, we saw them, I think, you know, they played Dallas and they played, you know, the Chiefs, 2, you know, high-power passing offense. And so really kind of keep, you know, guys back, play 2 deep zones, and really kind of force them or bait them into running the ball. And we saw the running games do fairly well, but we saw maybe some of the passing targets not do as well in those offenses, you know. And now when they went to go play, the Raiders on Monday night, they switched it up a bit because they, again, you know, I think they kind of felt like they probably would be able to, you know, handle that receiving core a little bit differently. And to me, it looked like their defense was a little bit different than what they had put on tape before. And I think they kind of went in with the idea that, you know, they really wanted to get at David Carr, get him roughed up a little bit, and make sure that their running game didn't get off the ground. So it to me, it's just harder to figure out what players to start week in and week out. I mean, you talked about Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. Like, you can't really sit those guys, but when teams are really kind of taking those guys away, and you have a good quarterback in Dak Prescott, and you have a very good offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, you know, they're aware of these things as well, and they're scheming for it. And that's why we're seeing the rise of Dalton Schultz. And so eventually they'll play a team that maybe, you know, kind of runs a certain scheme, and we'll probably see CeeDee and Amari Cooper go off those games. So trying to figure out what games those are very difficult, because it's hard to sit those guys. But I don't know, maybe when we get to week 14, 15, we have enough film and data and a better sense of what these defenses are doing and who they're trying to take out. Maybe we're a little bit more comfortable sitting those guys. It's tough to say and tough to think about, but it's been hard. I don't know. It's been really hard seeing so many guys go off that you didn't really have necessarily on your radar, or you didn't consider starting worthy.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And you know, so it's not really, as much people who aren't, or players that aren't involved, but, just seeing that when, like a Uzuma, all of a sudden, getting a ton of usage, that one player that you just kind of is coming out of left field.
What do you mean all of a sudden, Dan? Come on. You don't have a lot of Uzuma, man?
I've got a ton of Uzuma, but,
a Burrow Uzuma stack. You know what I'm saying?
I do have stacks of Uzuma in best ball, so I was very happy to see it. But, I ain't going to lie. I really have very little in managed leagues, and the places where I did have him, I certainly did not start him. So, it is what it is.
Guys, first of all, the goodness that's pouring out, smash the like, all kinds. You guys are watching right now. It helps us big time. Takes a millisecond, barely energy. You don't even have to get up. You just use the one finger. You just move it, click, good to go. I rudely did not ask our guest, Dan, as usual. The one thing in the district is the clock just seems to fly big time. We're at a $1:10 right now. Do you guys have a curfew? You got anywhere to...
No, I'm good to go. You got me all night.
I'm good to go. I just have to check the battery, the cell phone battery, and then I think I'm good.
I love it. I think Chris just went to do a wardrobe change. I love it. He's ready to go. That's awesome, man. That is awesome.
Hey, fresh.
I'll go to you, Chris, as we come back. We're talking themes. Abib touched on, just themes or trends that you're seeing coming out of Q1 that our listeners right now should really pay attention to as we move forward into the season.
One thing that I was kind of interested into seeing, especially last night, was that how would teams sort of neutralize, teams that had great pass rushes. So I wanted to see how many carries Eckler got between the tackles as opposed to how many dump offs he got out of the backfield. And I think teams like the Raiders, you want to run the ball between the tackles to prevent those defensive ends from pinning their ears back in bull rushing. I think we're going to see that with a lot of good defenses that, hey, if their front seven, has a really good pass rush, let's run the ball, even if that's not something that we do particularly well. So, for instance, with the Cowboys, we've seen them take Micah Parsons and put him out on the edge and let him, come off the edges. I think a lot of teams are going to try to run the ball between the tackles against the Cowboys and against defenses like that. So I've been kind of paying attention to how, how offenses have schemed against these really good front sevens and what they're doing towards teams that can really rush the quarterback, especially pass-heavy teams. And so I think that's something to kind of look at going forward because let's face it, we all know Eckler for catching the ball out of the backfield, not necessarily dominating carries between the tackles, and he looked really good last night. So I think that's something that we're going to see going forward.
Love that nickname too. What is it? Pound per pound?
Pound for pound, yeah.
Pound for pound. Like if any of you guys ever call me pound for pound, I'll be walking with my head high. Forget double champ Abib, man. Get out of my way. That's my nickname.
Pound for pound coming through. Well,
Theo knows.
I'll make you a deal, JD. You can do the one-arm pull-ups, then we'll start going to pound for pound, man.
The best was the reaction. I forget who, but it ex-NFL player. The reaction was just like, it was priceless. He's just like, how does he even do that? And this is like a guy who played in the NFL,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, so one trend I've definitely noticed is, a lot more offenses are going for it on fourth down a lot more. And even on their side of the field, it's starting to happen more. There are still a few offenses that are just, very unwilling to do it. They have coaches that seem to be pretty stuck in the mud, but anytime we have offenses going for it on fourth down, I think it just increases scoring overall because you just give yourself one extra chance to convert and keep that drive moving. So, I love to see it. I'm not sure that there's much actionable other than just pay attention to which offenses are willing to do that. and you can slightly nudge up their players versus the ones who on offenses that don't. But that's one of those things that's really kind of nibbling away at the edges more so than something that's really easy to put into play in fantasy for ourselves.
Theo, what do you got, brother? Oh, hold on.
You're mute.
You're on mute. I put you in the corner. You're kind of noisy.
You're in time, man.
There you go. I'll kind of echo Abib a little bit, where I think that this is a season where there's going to be a lot of variance and change as the season keeps progressing. I wonder if the 17-game season is going to make coaches more willing to sit guys and maybe not push an injury more. I think for us as fantasy players, it's very important to keep grinding and churning the bottom of your roster and try to stay very strong and to have useful pieces. B brought up the fact that you might want to bench a high-profile guy as we get more and more data as it moves along. And I think that, that also kind of goes hand in hand with it, where I just think it's going to be a lot of variance, and I think that a lot of situations will keep changing. And it's certainly not going to be a stagnant season by any means. And I think we just got to kind of stay on our toes. And I love Dan's call on the fourth downs. I think that a lot of these coaches are really diving into analytics more. It seems like some of the new coaches are pretty sharp. I think, Brandon Stanley looks, unbelievably sharp. And I think that, the going for it on fourth down thing is great for fantasy. It makes games more exciting. And, I'm all for it. And I think it's oftentimes the correct call. So I love that call, Dan. I hope we keep seeing it.
Yeah, it certainly makes for a much more watchable game, without a doubt.
Do you guys see a way to capitalize on that? Like, is there a specific position benefiting on, with that? Is it the running back? Is there anything there? Is it just something, Dan, keep an eye on it, something we're noticing the offense is just being more aggressive? Or are you maybe paying attention to the teams that are doing it more?
I mean, I think you certainly want to have the as many aggressive offensive teams as possible. And I think it comes down to, a lot of times, if you're gauging a roster decision, especially in thinner formats, it's, I want exposure to, those top offenses and some of those very aggressive offenses. And I think Abib made a great point where as we start getting the data, it's not necessarily just getting the Arizona guys and the Buffalo guys, but when we start seeing a defense really struggling, brought up the New York Giants defense taking a big step back, and that really aids the offense. So we'll get to see some of these kind of game flow teams where, hey, maybe I want to have, some of those catch-up teams as the season keeps going, where the only way they have a chance to win is in a shootout format. So I think that was definitely a sharp take earlier. So, I think it just goes with, you want aggressive coaches that are able to get the ball in their playmakers' hands and, don't settle for field goals. It's just supercharged with all these teams going for it on fourth.
Yep.
Guys, I'm going to throw in another off the show sheet type of question before we move into our fake news segment, which I love, Dan. So creative. Our marketing. Dan's our new marketing VP, by the way, if anyone's looking for some marketing, crushing it with the marketing. But no, in all seriousness, I do have a question for you guys. I think a lot of Fantasyland probably faces this, and Abib, you touched on it, maybe sitting some of your top end guys as we move into the season. But I feel like there's the guys that there's your starters, and then there's your guys that you can start, that like your Cordero Patterson. And I know, specifically myself, especially FFPC, I've got Patterson on a roster, but I mean, he's not getting in the lineup, right? My team's already, it's FFPC, so you're top heavy, your lineup's already started. So I'm wondering if we dive deep into that, and maybe I'll start with you, Abib, because you mentioned it. How do you manage that? The guys that are popping that maybe you didn't expect, like these Patterson type of players, versus the guys like the AJ Browns, or you touched on, Justin Jefferson till this week didn't necessarily pop. how do you decide Buddy who's hot or Buddy who, I drafted this guy in said round and I need to start him every week?
Yeah. I want winners. I want players who want to win. You play
to win the game.
You play to win the game. You want players to score points, but it's tough. And it's a week-to-week proposition. There are certain guys you're just not going to sit. Okay, you're not sitting Devontae Adams, Christian McCaffrey's, those guys, those upper echelon guys. But now when you see guys like CeeDee Lamb, a guy who we want to kind of take that next step, who maybe, say he has another 2 games of just, very average performances, okay? At some point, you have to ask yourself, okay, is this who he is, Is he a low floor, high ceiling guy? And so one reason why I like, constructing my team around having a lot of running backs, not just, the high-end running backs, but these high handcuff guys is because my ideal situation is starting 4 running backs because starting 4 running backs who are going to get 15-plus touches a game because that way I don't have to guess, okay? Mm-hmm. I know I put a guy in my lineup who is going to get, 12 to 15 carries and a couple of, targets a game. And then whatever happens. And then I can live with that. And then I choose, 2 of my best wide receivers, ideally high talent guys, guys who I took at higher ADPs who are in great matchups. And then I can kind of play that game as opposed to starting 2 running backs and then trying to guess between all my wide receivers. Because in years past, I felt like it was a little bit easier. Again, we keep going back to this narrow target tree. Teams may be running less 4, 5 wide receiver sets. There's so many guys that are involved now. And then we also have the receiving tight ends. So when there's so much variance going on, I try not to play that game of, trying to guess who's going to go off this week. So if it's someone who's been struggling, let's use Allen Robinson, for instance. I have no issue sitting him for Marquise Brown. I've done it, plenty of times. I have no issue sitting him for guys who I feel like are in a good matchup, who can still give me a safe floor, but who have maybe higher upside until I see Allen Robinson sort of kind of, be put in a better situation or be put in a situation where I feel more comfortable and more confident in terms of him putting up stats. But when it goes to, with a guy like Cordell Patterson, to me, that's a tougher situation. That's not how my mind works. I get it. To me, he's a tough call because of his snap percentage, in terms of how often he sees the field. Him scoring, 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns. I don't think anyone's expecting that. But even still with that, we need to see him on the field more. We need to see more routes run for me to feel comfortable with him putting out that same, type of, fantasy output. And then you can also argue that, okay, he's playing so well, Mike Davis looks poorly, that maybe he does get, an increased snap percentage, and I'll sort of kind of play that game and assume that the coaches will, allow him to see the field a little bit more. So he's someone for me that, I'm definitely selling high on. I think he's definitely a worthy flex play. I'm not saying that he's useless, but he's not someone that I'm just like, slotting in and starting over someone like an Allen Robinson.
I'll go to you, Chris, but Dan, that sounds very similar to kind of your whole, like, I want him to prove me first before I put him in my starting lineup. And I love that kind of approach because it makes it simple. And simpletons like me, we don't necessarily think of that in that way. And I love that. It's just a great way to approach it. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I play whoever Abby and Dio tell me to start. So everybody talks about a process, and for those who are not as experienced, because this is my first year playing volume, this is only my second year playing FFPC, and so the biggest difference is having a process, but also having a team that you can bounce ideas off of. And so we consider our group chat like pretty sacred because like there are no stupid questions, no stupid propositions, although they probably think my Pollard stance is stupid. But other than that, for the most part, the group chat, I actually counted one day. I didn't answer a single text message, and I wanted the Apple notification to count how many text messages went off in a single day. And I accidentally opened it up, but it was at 500 text messages by the time it was about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's because every article that's coming out about a player, like there's just this pinging back and forth. And I think you need that to be a good fantasy football player. You need to be able to bounce ideas off of guys. And so Monday, Tuesday, pretty much Wednesday afternoon, I'm just watching them bounce back and forth, right? And I'll throw in and I'll add in every now and again, but then I'll take both of their arguments and then I'll make my own conclusion about it. But I kind of see that as whoever they tell me to kind of start, because to be honest, at the end of it, they come to a consensus, right? Like they say, well, you know what? You had a point. And then I find myself coming around to whatever that consensus is. So listen, if you do not have a group of guys that you talk to about fantasy football with over time, I think you're placing yourself at a disadvantage because there are just too many ways to think about players, teams, offensive schemes, to not have this dialogue to kind of work through your opinions on these players, on these offenses. So my short answer is whoever Abby tells me to start any given week. Like that's kind of
Chris. I love that. I love that answer. I love that answer because I joke about like having Dan and Theo on, but legit, like they're two of the smartest guys I know. You two are two. Like, look at us now, right? You're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. Like, I'm pretty smart right now, right? And you kind of touch on that, but it's true. Like even with Theo and Dan, like I'll think about a trade and I'll drop it in there. And the first thing Dan says, it's like, it takes me to a place where I didn't even think of going. And that's what I love about it. It takes your mind somewhere where you never thought of going. And especially if they're guys you respect and that you trust their opinions. Like you said, the decision's made for you, but in a clever way. It's not like you're just rolling a dice,
Right.
I like that a lot.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the theory behind, what we're doing on the podcast here. I mean, we get people that we think are sharp and that whose opinions we respect, and we get them on here and we talk about football, and I feel like I'm learning as much as anybody, the whole time. Because you just want to, you want to expose yourself to, people who just, they've got skin in the game and they're doing well at it. And, that to me is super important, and I have a more than one group of people that I rely on, and I'll, depending on what kind of question is, I might ask this group or I might ask that group or whatever. But, I do think that it's important to, to bounce things off of people because, I can get kind of caught up in my own head of, this is, I get a narrative going and, I get stuck on it. And, sometimes I need to talk to somebody else and they just like completely jolt me out of that narrative. And it's like, well, what was I even thinking? Or sometimes, they might talk to me about it and I'm like, no, I'm even more convinced that I'm right.
Yeah.
One or the other, but, but just kind of getting it out there and getting other people to help kind of flesh it out, I think is super, super important and kind of developing that kitchen sink. Back in the day of message boards and all that kind of stuff, I had a pretty tight group that I hung with on the Fantasy Guru message boards. And when I finally got off the message boards and onto Twitter, I just, I kind of took that group with me. It was a bunch of guys whose opinions I respected. And we just started an email chain and we said, we're going to keep this going because, we feel like we all have good opinions and, that's what we've done. And it's been going for years now.
Dan's really in touch with the kids these days with the message boards and the email chains.
Oh my God.
Just ripping it.
I know it. Right. I mean, we're all old school guys. I mean, I date back to the days of, Prodigy and all that kind of stuff. So,
I love it.
Back when the internet was barely the internet.
I love it, man. Hey, let's face it. We're not that far, we're not that far away from that. It's just with it just everything seems like it's so far. All right, guys, smash the like, smash the subscribe. We've taken this to $1.30. So we're gonna do, Dan, we're gonna do fake news, like kind of a speed version, even though when we say that, it doesn't usually turn out to that. But we're gonna try to do kind of a, get through this quick enough. Some good topics, and we got to start in Jacksonville. It's one of these, like, Dan, you put a tweet in, like, is this something that, is there content here? Is this something that we should kind of shrug off? I know at first it was like, oh my God. And then I watched this one video. I forget where it was from, but anyways, kind of dove a little deeper and it looked kind of innocent, didn't do anything, and now it's kind of back where like he lost the confidence of the team and he's, his job's on the line. So again, I'll go to the champ, I'll go to our guest, Abib, and then we'll go to our boy Theo. But what are your thoughts, Urban Meyers in Jacksonville? Should we be worried about this, or not worried, but is this something we should be paying attention to in Fantasyland, or is this just a bunch of smoke?
No, you should definitely be worried. Now, I think from, like a player standpoint, I don't see it changing much. The one thing I do worry about is I expected, Trevor Lawrence to start out slow. He's a rookie coming in, understand what he did at Clemson, but, I wasn't all that impressed, with this tape. I saw the talent there. I saw the talent. But I expected him to kind of come in and have, a few bumps in the road, but to progress as the year went on and really hopefully elevate that offense. I still saw it as an upgrade over Gardner Minshew from last year. And so with Urban there and with just the reports of players not really, maybe having, having a lot of respect in them, or seeing him as sort of kind of this, leader of the team, that worries me because that potentially may stunt the growth and development of Trevor Lawrence to some degree. I don't ever hope that anyone gets fired, but I was kind of hoping that he got fired. I'm not sure, Dan Bevel as a coach. I mean, their defense is their defense. I mean, I think they're going to struggle throughout the year, and I think the team is going to be in a lot of shootouts. I just hope that, what we see is as we move forward is this offense opening up. It was a tough hit for them to leave, to lose DJ Chark, but that again narrows the tree a tad bit. Hopefully with what we saw Thursday and what they saw Thursday, that allows James Robinson to sort of kind of take over as the lead back. And so, you want teams like this where you can say, okay, I feel comfortable starting, Chenault and Marvin Jones as wide receiver threes and flexes. I feel comfortable starting, James Robinson as my RB2. And if I'm in a super flex or, bye week, I feel comfortable, having Trevor Lawrence as that backup QB with some potential upside. What I don't want to see and what scares me, to get back to your original question, is a team just imploding, We're going to get to a point towards the back end of the year, and this is more the playoff weeks for FFPC, but I feel like those weeks, maybe 13, 14 through 16, now 17, teams that are really, really bad, that implode, I don't want anything to do with them. I really don't. It becomes a real struggle. Players just aren't playing as well as they should. And this sort of kind of, it takes over the entire team. And I think, you see players that, if they have a minor ankle injury that week 3 or week 4 they would have played through, they are now sitting out and maybe even going on IR. So if it turns into that type of team, then I may try to see myself maybe selling some of those players before we get to that point. But, we're in week 4 right now. So hopefully he's able to right the ship and turn things around.
Yeah. I think Urban's dust. I think that the guys that when Shad Khan came out and kind of threw him under the bus, I think that the writing is on the wall. I think they're looking to fire him soon enough. I'm a little surprised that they didn't do it this week. I think maybe because it was a Thursday game and then the video came out. Maybe that kind of threw things for a loop. But for the owner, that was his guy to bring in Urban, and then for him to throw him under the bus. And then you read the reports that Urban wouldn't face the entire team to apologize and kind of tell his story. He canceled the Monday meeting they always have, and then he met with each individual group each individual team group instead of, the entire team. It's a weird situation. And I'll agree with Abib. Like, a team completely imploding, it's almost impossible to kind of predict the weekly usage and the scripts. And I'll continue starting James Robinson and I'll start, using Vista a little bit more, but it is a bad situation right now in Jacksonville. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, I have no idea, what Urban and his wife do. I mean, maybe they don't care. But
the best is, Dan, that night she put a tweet out of her in the bathroom with their 3 kids, giving them baths, saying, "Oh, I let him go out tonight. He deserved it. He's hardworking." And then just, shift the camera over to him getting grinded by that blondie, that's about like a third of his age. It's like, Urban, is it awake? What's happening? And he's got his hand. The best is he's got his hand there, but he's not really like pushing her away. I can't figure out what's happening there, but I just thought the wife's tweet was just, a nice little cherry.
It's an ugly situation for sure. And, and the main thing is just it's a distraction that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
And that's, keeping it on the NFL. And that's the main thing I'm looking at is it's just a distraction that doesn't need to be there. And I think, how the team reacts to it this week probably is going to have a lot to say about whether this, whether he continues on in the job or not. So.
All right, we're going to pair some of these up. Let's go Patterson and Debo. I'll go back to you, Abib. Fake news with these two, or you believe that the trend continues moving forward with each one?
The trend will not continue. But I do think Debo is a wide receiver 1. He's definitely, I hate the term or the idea of, okay, we redraft, we're going to take these guys here after watching them for 3 weeks, as if the next 3 weeks are not going to completely change, to some degree, or people, there's going to be regression both ways. But, if I were to redraft, I'm taking Debo obviously ahead of Ayuk. I definitely think, you just watch the games. He's not just getting peppered with targets. He's a first read in their offense. And if there's any offense that you want to target the guy who's the first read in, it's the Shanahan offense. And so I think the last few years, it's been a bit cloudy because of the players who were, considered the wide receiver 1s and some of the injuries that they've had, kind of even dating back to Washington. But historically, before that, I think we were all kind of wanting that wide receiver 1, and I think we're finally seeing it. They are really scheming him open. He's a first read. They're getting him into bubble screens. We know, once you get the ball in his hand, even if it's a carry, he can do some damage. And credit to him. This is not a situation where it's just like, okay, why don't they get Ayuk the ball more? Like, Debo is playing very, very well. Like, he is playing extremely well. He's making plays, one-handed catches, breaking tackles, fighting for the first down. If you actually watch the San Francisco games, he deserves everything he's getting. So I think it's, fake from a standpoint of is he going to put up 180 and a touchdown every week? Probably not. I don't know how many times you can be wide open for 60-yard touchdowns. But I do expect him to, still produce, at like a wide receiver 1 type level, even if it's a low 1, high end wide receiver 2. And then as far as Cordell Patterson, if you ask me right now, I'd say I'm probably not buying it. Again, I think he's more of a flex bye-week play. I got guys injured. I'll put him in my lineup. But I need a guy to, play more. I'm not going to, bet on him having this historic. His production is historic in every sense of the word. And so you ask yourself, okay, week 6, week 7, am I going to be all that surprised if he kind of goes back to catching 3 balls for 35 and, run, 4 or 5 rushes for 15 and 20 yards and not scoring that many. We're not going to be all that surprised whatsoever. So, it may be a situation where I think, maybe some owners have, kind of this FOMO, I missed out on those weeks and then now I got to get him in my lineup. I don't feel like you have to, it wasn't a situation where you've seen his snap count significantly increase and rise. If you need him, you need him. If he's the best play option you have, play him. but don't feel like, okay, I have to slot him in as my RB2 based off of what I've seen over the last few weeks, because again, limited snap count and at a historic rate. That is like the, kind of the ideal candidate for regression when we talk about it.
All right, I'm going to go to Chris. I'm going to give him 2 more, and then Dan and Theo, you guys just add whatever you can to it. And then I got a couple tight ends for you guys to close it out. Bobby Woods and Kenny G. Chris, fake news?
Ooh. God, that's a tough one. Listen, I'm going to hold out for Bobby Woods. To be honest, I'm kind of all in. I drafted him where I drafted him, so I can't give up on him after 3 weeks. But that offense, to me, is humming at a pace that I think things can turn on a dime. So I'm going to say fake news. I'm going to say, listen, hold tight on Bobby Woods. I may not start him for a couple of weeks, but I'm definitely not going to drop him. I've heard some people talk about dropping Robert Woods. I can't drop him. But depending on the matchup, I may sit him, depending on the matchup. But I like Robert Woods. I'm still going to hold out hope.
Theo, what do you got?
So I'll agree with Abib. Debo is a wide receiver 1 this year. I think he's a stud. We used to believe in the third-year breakout. It's the third-year breakout. Debo is just – he's one of the easiest starts right now at the wide receiver position. Cordero, it's kind of like I'll use it since the U.S. men's national team plays this week in a qualifier. I'll use a soccer term. I'll go to form. In soccer, you want to play the guy with the form, and Cordero has incredible form. And if you're leaving him in your flex position, then you can afford to be left holding the bag. When the luck runs out. But it's very hard for me to put him back on the bench based on right now he's top 5 at the running back position. I'll kind of ride that wave at least for a few more weeks and see where it goes. The snaps might not be there, but he certainly is getting targeted. He's getting touches, when he is in. And then with the other 2 guys, Bobby Woods, just treat him as a wide receiver 3 right now. Be realistic with where you're at. But I do think like I said earlier, I think, some games are coming. And I'm not quite sure what to make of Kenny G. He looked, good. Recently he was kind of slow out the gate. And he, at the end of the day, he was an 8th round pick. He slid down and was going in the 7th, 8th round. So, I think that he will pay off at that cost. But I'll wait and see which way the Giants' offense goes in terms of consistent week-to-week usage. How about you, Dan?
Yeah. So Cordero, I would say just again volume and productivity tend to converge. Which way it's going to converge, I'm not entirely sure. But it's either the volume's going to have to go up to match the production, or the production's going to end up going down to match the volume. One of the two. And like Theo said, I don't have a problem having him in my flex, especially if I feel like I'm in a week where I need a big score to win. Sometimes I feel like, hey, I just gotta have a good score, and I'm probably going to beat this team. And other weeks I want that, I'm like, yeah, I gotta get in the 180s or whatever to win. And so if I've got something like that, then I'm going to search out high variance options like Cordero. Debo, yeah, wide receiver 1, keep starting him. He's for real. Not fake news. Bobby Woods, I would say fake news. I think, he's eventually going to be coming around. As Chris said, he might be on your bench for now, but that's all right. And Kenny Galladay, also, I would say he's going to get better than he's been, but that's not a very high hurdle to cross.
Thinking the same thing. All right, guys, we're at $143. So let's close this bad boy out. Abib, always a blast, man. Guys, if you're not following at Skywalker 2000, Just, check these guys out, both of them. First and 15. Abib, this is your second time on the show. We definitely appreciate your time. We love talking to you, man. All the goodness. We hope the audience appreciated it, and they're smashing the like right now. Close this out with, words of wisdom, words of advice, anything you want to share before we close this out. But again, dude, we appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, enjoy the journey. Okay, we're only 4 weeks in now. We were blessed with an additional game this year. So even if you're 0-4, like, those are the teams that you should really kind of take pride in to really turn the ship. And I really do believe, I'm not just saying this, I think this year more than ever, if there are 0-4 teams that can really turn it around and just really explode, this is the year. This is a high variance year. I mean, look at Derrick Henry. Look at what he did week 1 versus what he did week 2. Okay, look at Tyreek Hill, what he did, week 3 versus week 4. And I think we're going to see that. And we've talked about some of these guys who we're not quite sure in terms of why they're not producing, or guys who are overproducing and whether or not that's fake. So there's just so much variance right now. I mean, those teams, like, take pride in them. Try to figure out what you can do. Don't make any rash moves or decisions in terms of trading your players away, because the worst thing you can do is to trade a guy who's underperforming only to see him then again this second quarter now overperform. And then you just bought high on someone who was overperforming, and now to see them regress, which just happens so often in the NFL. Go back to previous seasons if you have to. Go look at your old teams and go game by game by game and think to yourself, how was I feeling about this player through the first 3 weeks versus, mid-season versus how he finished? And you'll just sort of kind of get that sense of, okay, I can be patient. I can, this player, can come back around, or this player that, that I think is just, elite option and is worth a number 1 overall pick. Maybe I should sell, maybe, because even if he's still going to be, good, maybe I can get even more for him and grab players who are underperforming, who may, outpace him and exceed him moving forward. So, it's early on in the season. We have an extra game. Again, this year, I think is going to be just very interesting in terms of, players, with the spike weeks and whatnot. So don't get, too down if you're 1-3 and 0-4. Those teams can still really pull it out.
The glass is always half full in the district, Abib. I love it, man. I love the words of wisdom and the optimism, because there's guys listening right now that spent $1,200 in a redraft or whatever, and they're 0-4, just shaking their head, looking at their roster, saying how. But, you give them hope. And I think it's true, man. Especially, I love the variable factor that you threw in there is definitely valid. Especially we saw Tyreek Hill just, it doesn't, Dan and I were like Cooper Kupp or Brandon Cooks. Like, we made a mistake and we had Tyreek Hill. It didn't matter at the end of the day, right? Because Tyreek Hill made it all better. So the variable definitely makes it more accessible when it comes to being that 0-4 team looking to be competitive and still having a chance to go for the big one. Chris, I consider you the artist of the, maybe the techie, but it's kind of an art, right? To put it all together and get the minds of a guy like Abib, and kind of give it a visual effect. But I love what you're doing with the show, dude. Appreciate all the goodness you brought tonight. And guys, check him out. The original, no A, similar to our sleeper with no E on the end. Chris, Chris. Chris, anything else you want to share, brother, or remind the peeps where to find the show, because it's a great one.
Definitely find it on YouTube. We also have it on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. You can find the show First and 15. Listen, I don't have any championships, any medals. I haven't won any leagues yet. So my advice to anyone who has not won anything yet is to get yourself a team and to work through this. It's honestly, I see it like I see the stock market. I see each player as a different company that could rise, can fall based on what the market is doing. And so if you look at it and if you study it like a stock market, if you look at the players as such, then you will buy, low on certain players, and you will actually put in the work and see that work pay off in the long run. I think, as fantasy football players, we call it, having a share of someone for a reason. And so I see it as a stock market. You need other brokers around you to be good, in my opinion. And so find yourself an Abib.
I love it.
There you go.
Or Theo.
Find you to be, that's awesome.
That's a good one.
No, I love that you say that, because I'm a bit of a crypto degen, maybe, not stock market, I go the other, but it's similar, right? You're looking at graphs here, but I see it the way you do, in the sense that I think people like, AJ Brown, for example, like, for me, it's just an opportunity to buy more, to buy that player that I couldn't buy before his price came down. Yeah. Whereas people see it as, some people see it as like, his price came down, oh my God, he's no good anymore. You got to stick to your narrative, man. You can't give like 1-2 weeks to adjust a guy's total value overall that quickly. Take advantage of that. And I love that you say that, especially when values drop. It's buying time, baby, especially if it's someone you believed in, Guys, love the wisdom. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, I was saying to buy the dip sometimes.
Buy the dip.
Music to JD's ears.
Yeah, I hope you all bought the dip on that BTC, son.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah. The Bulls are coming, baby. The Bulls are here, and they are coming strong. Theo, I know you were pumped for tonight. Tonight was another great show, brother. Again, share some goodness for the peeps. Remind the people where to find you. And I know we've been teasing people with your waiver wire goodness, but it's coming.
Yeah. So next week, I think we're gonna drop a waiver wire buy low show. JD and I are trying to work out the day it drops. We're coming with some of the best guests that we can find. Abib and Chris were fantastic tonight. We had Glenn Lowy on last week, so we're having some of the sharpest minds that I think are in fantasy football coming on the GOAT District. So continue to look for us on Tuesdays. And then, our Thursday show, we're getting that going. We had Ben Gretsch on, and we have a few other, top guests for that Thursday show. So, you can find me on the GOAT District. You can find me on Twitter, and you can find my waiver wire column on Player Profiler every single week. And yeah, this is a blast tonight. I really enjoyed having Abib back on again, and Chris, it was awesome talking to you as well. I thought this was a tremendous show, fellas. Really enjoyed it.
Dan, what did you call the Thursday show? The Thursday tailgate?
Yeah, the Thursday tailgate. So
Thursday tailgate for it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's basically we'll start like an hour and 20 minutes before the game and finish up 20 minutes before the game. So we're going to actually keep ourselves to an hour. It's crazy talk, I know, but it can be done. We did it with Ben. So anyway, we all want to see the game, so we have our incentive to wrap it up. But this was a super fun show. Just to add what these guys said, you definitely got to know what you think players are capable of, and stick strong to what you think they can do. I mean, water finds its level. So that's, if you think a player is great, then he's great. And if he's coming cheap to you, then get him cheap while you can. When something's down, it can either go back up or it can go out. Players that are down, either they go out of the league or they go back up. If you're paying a cheap price for somebody who's really down, if he goes out of the league, you haven't really lost that much. But if he goes back up, you've made a big win. And always, when you have somebody who's way on top, if you're not, especially in Dynasty, if you're not competing this year, sell them off, because there's no place to go but down. So if somebody's in that that top 6 Dynasty players, you're almost always better off selling. Again, unless you're competing for this year. So anyway, yeah, ton of fun, guys. Thanks for coming on. Every week this podcast is just so much fun for me to just be able to sit around and talk with some super intelligent people that I really respect, and you guys definitely fit right into that. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, 100%, man. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Like we said, smash the like, smash the subscribe, show the support. And guys, 1st and 15, if you're not watching it right now, go search that real quick on YouTube and follow them on there, on Twitter, all the social media. Follow Abib, follow Chris. Guys, we appreciate your time. Get that W, man, in week 5. Abib even said it. You could be 0-4 right now. There is still hope, guys. I told my 5-year-old daughter today, trying to teach her the glass is half full, man. It's not half empty. It's half full. So she's starting to learn real quick. I'm teaching her, sell on green, buy on red, just really little lessons here and there. Buy the dip. She's 5, but she's getting it. I feel like she is.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks a lot, man. This has been a blast. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll check you all later.
GOAT District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's a... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them.